1960s, under the direction of President John F. Kennedy, the United States began launching a secret campaign in coordination with the Special Forces of the Republic of Vietnam under Ngo Dinh Diem to sabotage the Ho Chi Minh Trail. This was part of a broader strategy to sever the supply of weapons and support from the north to the southern guerrilla forces while reducing the influence of the Viet Cong in South Vietnam. Both the United States and the Republic of Vietnam aimed to intervene directly in North Vietnam to push back the development of the guerrillas, thus facilitating the non-border war in the south. The campaign focused on covert activities, such as planting mines, sabotaging communist bases, and deploying special forces to attack key targets. The goal was to weaken the control and command of North Vietnamese forces over the southern combat units. However, the plan faced numerous challenges. Despite strong military support from the United States, the Republic of Vietnam's forces were not fully prepared to counter the skilled and tactically flexible guerrilla forces. Although the United States and the Republic of Vietnam made significant efforts, the outcomes were not as expected. The strategies to sabotage the Ho Chi Minh Trail were not as effective as hoped, and the campaign became increasingly costly without yielding significant results. This marked the beginning of a tense battle of wits and force between the U.S. military and Vietnam, and laid the foundation for the subsequent failures in the Vietnam War. After taking office in late January 1961, President John F. Kennedy chaired an important meeting with the National Security Council to discuss the situation in Vietnam. During this meeting, the U.S. ambassador to Saigon presented a strategic plan against insurgency, with the primary goal of defeating the Viet Cong in the south. This plan not only included military measures, but also focused on eliminating support from North Vietnam to the southern guerrillas, thus severing the links between the combat forces in the guerrilla war. One of the key aspects of Kennedy's plan was the expansion of attack campaigns against North Vietnam, aimed at retaliation and creating significant pressure on the Hanoi government. President Kennedy wanted to make the North taste what they are doing to us in the South, thereby expanding the war into North Vietnamese territory. This was seen as a decisive order, initiating military operations not only in the South, but also attacking targets in the North. The goal of this plan was to make a major change in U.S. military strategy in Vietnam. Kennedy sought to completely eliminate Northern support for the guerrilla forces in the South and destroy all resistance from the Viet Cong. However, this strategy encountered many challenges and fierce resistance from the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, which had developed a highly flexible strategy for guerrilla warfare. Despite the U.S. efforts and substantial military and financial backing, the strategies did not achieve the expected results, leading to a series of failures in the early years of the Vietnam War. Though the campaign to attack North Vietnam was launched with abundant resources and strong determination from both the United States and the Republic of Vietnam, it did not yield the expected results. The strategies to sabotage the Ho Chi Minh Trail, attack Viet Cong military bases, and use special forces to infiltrate key areas ultimately met strong and sophisticated resistance from the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, DRVN. Despite the advanced weaponry, equipment, and tactics provided to the United States, these campaigns were unable to achieve decisive victories. One crucial factor leading to the failure of this campaign was the deep understanding and highly flexible tactics of the Northern Army. The strategies of the United States and the Republic of Vietnam primarily relied on military might and direct assaults, whereas the Northern guerrillas employed guerrilla warfare, a more agile strategy involving surprise attacks and utilizing terrain for concealment. The DRVN had developed effective intelligence and communication networks, enabling them to detect and counter U.S. attacks in real time. U.S. campaigns, including mine planting and attacking communist bases, failed to halt the flow of weapons and support from the north to the south via the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Specifically, when the U.S. launched large-scale attacks on military bases in North Vietnam, DRVN intelligence quickly detected the plans and prepared effective counter-strategies. They used sophisticated counterintelligence methods, such as spreading false information, deceiving U.S. intelligence, and rendering the American campaigns ineffective. One of the biggest failures came when U.S. intelligence, despite using advanced listening devices and information-gathering technology, was tricked and fell into traps set by the Northern Army. Some of the U.S. eavesdropping equipment was captured by the DRVN and used to decode U.S. intelligence, causing American intelligence to lose its strategic advantage. Moreover, the lack of experience from the Republic of Vietnam's forces in guerrilla warfare made it difficult to counter the Northern guerrilla tactics, even with substantial U.S. assistance. For these reasons, the sabotage and attack campaigns against North Vietnam not only became financially costly, but also resulted in military failure. The U.S. faced strong resistance from the guerrilla forces, and the campaign, which was supposed to sever support from the North to the South, only made the war longer and more difficult. These failures highlighted the differences in strategy between the United States and Vietnam, with one side relying on military power, while the other utilized guerrilla warfare and sophisticated intelligence to turn the tide. Failure of U.S. intelligence during the campaign to attack North Vietnam was one of the key factors leading to the overall failure of the U.S. strategy in Vietnam. Despite having advanced technology and weaponry, U.S. intelligence failed to effectively counter the sophisticated tactics of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, DRVN, particularly in intelligence gathering and surveillance. One of the main reasons for the failure of U.S. intelligence was its lack of understanding of guerrilla warfare and the Northern Army's quick adaptation to the changing tactics of the United States. U.S. intelligence deployed a series of eavesdropping operations and gathered information using advanced equipment such as frequency listening devices, secret communication systems, and listening posts set up in key strategic areas in South Vietnam. However, the Northern intelligence quickly recognized the limitations of these devices and began using effective counter-strategies. One tactic employed by the Vietnamese intelligence was spreading false information, which rendered U.S. attack strategies meaningless. They also used decryption techniques to capture U.S. communications, which made it increasingly difficult for U.S. intelligence to detect and analyze signals from the Northern Army. In addition, the Vietnamese Army learned how to use the signals they collected from U.S. devices to camouflage strategic targets. For instance, when U.S. intelligence reported a concentration of DRVN troops at a certain base, the Northern guerrillas would quickly relocate or create fake sites to confuse U.S. strategies. Furthermore, the guerrilla forces' surprise attacks and sabotage operations against U.S. infrastructure prevented U.S. intelligence from maintaining effective control over strategic areas. This process not only reflected a failure in intelligence work, but also exposed weaknesses in U.S. military strategy. Despite having advanced intelligence equipment, the lack of understanding of guerrilla warfare and the flexibility of the DRVN's tactics meant that the U.S. could not achieve its strategic objectives in Vietnam. Ultimately, the failure in intelligence contributed significantly to the U.S. defeat in the Vietnam War. Vietnamese intelligence, despite lacking the technological support of the U.S. military, demonstrated superior fighting abilities through a deep understanding of guerrilla warfare, resilience, and sophisticated strategies. One key factor in Vietnamese intelligence defeating U.S. intelligence was their ability to employ flexible and creative tactics, making the best use of available resources and geography to overcome technological limitations. Firstly, Vietnamese intelligence developed strong spy networks and intelligence bases, allowing them to gather information from areas inaccessible to U.S. intelligence. Vietnamese intelligence units, including both militia and guerrilla forces, were trained to use effective information-gathering methods without attracting attention. They maximized their knowledge of the local terrain to collect information from the very areas that U.S. intelligence relied heavily on. One particularly effective tactic used by Vietnamese intelligence was spreading false information and deceiving U.S. intelligence. The Vietnamese military disseminated false reports about impending attacks, causing U.S. strike strategies to become misdirected. For example, when U.S. intelligence provided information about Vietnamese forces concentrating in a strategic area, Vietnamese guerrillas quickly moved or created fake positions, making U.S. attacks ineffective. In this way, Vietnamese intelligence carried out a series of virtual campaigns that kept U.S. intelligence struggling and never able to obtain accurate information. In addition to using deceptive tactics, Vietnamese intelligence succeeded in exploiting U.S. intelligence equipment they captured. Specifically, they captured advanced listening devices, such as the Z3 machine, capable of listening in on and recording thousands of telephone conversations and radio signals. These devices not only allowed them to gather information from U.S. forces, but also helped them decode encrypted signals, enabling them to predict U.S. actions. This intelligence collection helped the Vietnamese military stay one step ahead, making timely strategic moves. One of the standout strategies of Vietnamese intelligence was exploiting the weaknesses of U.S. intelligence. While the U.S. used complex technologies and eavesdropping systems, the Vietnamese military used traditional but effective methods, such as communication through simple, less detectable channels. At the same time, they developed the ability to decode U.S. and Allied encrypted signals, causing U.S. intelligence to become lost in collecting and analyzing data. As a result, Vietnamese intelligence not only defeated U.S. eavesdropping and information gathering strategies, but also proactively thwarted U.S. attacks. When the U.S. attempted to deploy B-52 bombers against targets already reported, the Vietnamese forces quickly changed positions, rendering these airstrikes pointless. These failures, combined with the sophisticated strategy of Vietnamese intelligence, prevented U.S. intelligence from achieving its strategic objectives in Vietnam. Ultimately, Vietnamese intelligence proved not only its ability to fight, but also its superiority in strategy and flexible thinking, forcing the U.S. to acknowledge defeat in the intelligence war in Vietnam. The willpower of the Vietnamese military and people during the Vietnam War, especially through intelligence strategies, was one of the key factors leading to the defeat of the United States. Despite facing challenges in technology and resource scarcity, the Vietnamese military exhibited resilience, creativity, and persistence in combat, traits that the U.S. military, despite its superior weaponry, could not match. This determination was not only evident on the battlefield, but also clearly shown in intelligence strategies and the ability to counter U.S. tactics. One of the highlights was the patience and resolve of Vietnamese intelligence. While the U.S. military relied on modern technologies like eavesdropping devices and complex intelligence networks, the Vietnamese military, despite technological limitations, maximized their psychological and spiritual fighting abilities. Their strategies were based on understanding terrain, people, and guerrilla warfare, things that the U.S. military could not fully grasp. Vietnamese intelligence was always ready to transition from defense to offense, using psychological warfare to undermine the enemy's fighting spirit. The resilience and fighting spirit of the northern guerrillas proved that they were not only fighting for ideals, but also for the survival of their nation. While the U.S. focused on a strategy of annihilation, emphasizing military power and technology, Vietnam introduced another crucial element into the war: unyielding willpower. Every tactic of Vietnam, from deceiving U.S. intelligence to creating fake campaigns, reflected a steadfast spirit that never surrendered. A perfect example is when Vietnamese intelligence carried out attacks, using creative thinking not only to strike at U.S. forces, but also to target the enemy's morale. When the U.S. conducted large-scale bombing campaigns, Vietnam's fake strategies made these attacks ineffective, causing confusion within enemy ranks. The Vietnamese military understood that in war, it's not just weapons, but the soldier's mental strength that makes the decisive difference. This spirit was also evident in the willingness of Vietnamese soldiers to sacrifice for the ideals and the country. They fought not only on the battlefield, but also on all fronts, from spreading false information to deceiving U.S. intelligence, to using intelligent methods to stop attacks. Despite not having the material and technological support the U.S. had, they always found ways to overcome hardships, demonstrating the powerful will of a resilient nation. In the end, Vietnam's success in overcoming U.S. military strategies was not just the result of brilliant intelligence tactics, but also a testament to their indomitable will. It was a steadfast will, unyielding in the face of adversity, and a firm belief in their ideals and fighting goals. While the U.S. military was strong in technology, Vietnam was strong in spirit. and that was the deciding factor in their ultimate victory. In conclusion, the Vietnam War was a struggle not only of military force, but also of willpower and intellect. While the US military and the Republic of Vietnam possessed modern military technologies, they could not defeat the resilience, creativity, and sophisticated tactics of the Vietnamese military. The victories of the northern guerrillas, particularly in intelligence operations, demonstrated that the will and fighting spirit of the Vietnamese people were key to their success. Despite facing many challenges in resources and technology, the Vietnamese military used their deep understanding of guerrilla warfare and a spirit of unity to create effective combat strategies that overcame all obstacles. It was their mental strength and determination to protect the country's independence and freedom that helped Vietnam remain resilient and eventually achieve ultimate victory. This victory was not only a military success, but also a victory of willpower, of a determined nation, affirming the value of unity, intellect, and patience in the struggle for independence. From this, Vietnam entered a new era with the indomitable spirit, serving as a solid foundation for the nation's future development.